don't know. I mean, you're probably familiar with this. Have you ever seen a RISO or worked with a RISO or anything? Or?
No, just what I've seen on videos.
So this is lime. But
Okay.
basically, the machine acts as storage when you're not actually, using a drum. If you're not using the machine, you would just leave. We have enough cases for the drums that are not in use.
Okay.
And so these cases are kind of interchangeable. But basically, the way it works is, this is a drum cylinder full of ink. We replace the ink tubes, but basically,
the tube goes in that
yeah.
way.
So essentially, this is
Okay.
like a part of the machine that it's interchangeable. We have a different drum for each color, so the drums come blank, and then you kind of program them to register whatever ink color you want it to be. That's a ghost image of somebody who was printing pink and black. So that looks like the black layer offset onto the pink layer. And I'll talk about that a little bit because these kinds, they print 2 colors at a time.
Yes.
So we have sky blue in the first position. We have pink in the second position. I'm gonna print a 4-color print. It's gonna be pink, blue, or sky blue, pink, black, and yellow. And so we basically want to have the other 2 drums handy for the second color.
Okay.
There's the yellow.
So to make the actual the screen that you put on top, how does that process work?
You could either send it. I'm going to be sending layers from a file that I have pulled up, or you can actually work from a glass scanning bed.
Got it.
So this is another way to do it. And some of my students were working on a project yesterday where they were working with originals to make a collaborative class book. So
is this a feeder?
No. This is just, I'm just storing it on.
Oh, it's a storage.
Yeah,
okay.
that's-
It's like a folder.
This is what we call a flatten cover on the top. It's just kind of covers.
Yeah.
There are feeders on the machines, but you don't need them.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to send the files from, I have this 4-color print that I use as a demo print.
Okay.
And right now it's all in black and white because I sort of know, I designed this, it was originally intended for silkscreen. I designed this for a class I was teaching in Parsons, and so all the layers were just in black and white. And I scanned them and I created layers that had some tonality to them. So this layer also, which originally was just solid. With RISO, the difference it's silkscreen essentially, but you can replicate these sort of subtle values. The RISO is going to create a master. It's going to create a stencil where it will use a pattern to make this. To render this in like a lighter, basically break it up using a pattern so that it appears lighter because the colors are going to be more dispersed, and here it's going to print kind of solid. So first we're going to send the blue. I've got the blue layer here, the pink layer here, but we'll send a version of the blue that's a bit lighter. And the technique that I used, what I actually had to develop during the pandemic was, we had to find a way to make fake RISO prints digitally. So the technique I came up with was to basically come up with these tinting layers. So you would fill it with whatever color. You sample a scan of a color chart. And this is just for you to visualize it while you're making your artwork. So the sky blue sort of looks like this. And then you would just, it's in grayscale. Make sure it's in RGB.
Okay.
But basically, like the colors, the layers have to be in black and white, but you would fill it with a color. There you go. So you fill it with a color, and then you have it tinting. So you have it tinting that layer. You can get a sense. Oh, it's going to look like this when I print it, but I want to send this to the RISO. So that's how you can that's one way to visualize it, and you can, of course, there's many other ways to do it.
Is this image with all the layers present?
Yeah, all that. So you have the blue layer, you have the pink. What's going to become the pink layer? You have the yellow layer, the black layer. So we're just going to go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and send.
Is this the? Can you show me what it looks like with all the layers combined, just so I can get an idea? Oh wow. Okay.
So I mean, it's going to be
because it's all got it. So because those are the different colors.
Right. They're all going to overlap. So you'll see it come together.
So what did you start with originally?
When I first made this image.
Yes.
So I basically made a drawing. It's from my backgrounds in silkscreen printmaking, and so my process when I was, for that part of my artwork,
Yes.
that's more drawing based, is I make a drawing and then I would lay down layers of transparent vellum or acetate and sort of block out colors, and then I would make screens from those or make
Oh, sure, we
plates
needed
from
the
those.
screen printing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so for,
But I applied that to RISO, so basically you're sending layers at a time, printing them together, then running the paper through again to print the subsequent colors.
but when you do you draw something by hand.
Yeah,
So that drawing,
yeah,
you drew that by hand.
right.
And then how do you create the layers once you're in one of the Adobe products?
You could, in Adobe, and actually I did this with my latest book, and this is what I use when I do freelance, because sometimes I do freelance illustration work, so whenever I do commercial work, it's all digital, but I'm actually working with a limited palette as if I'm making a print. I would have a layer, I would have a black layer, or a layer for line work, and I would basically be working on different layers for different colors, and have them blend together, and that could also become a RISO print, because I have a black and white version of it, and then I can just as easily be like, well, what's going to look like if I print this in, I could print this layer in green, so I can test it out digitally as a preview. And this goes into, this is just sort of to visualize it, this isn't really necessary to make a RISO process.
Sure.
But you could also print it and get a sense of what that's going to look like. So now I'm going to go ahead and just send these two layers. I'm going to go File, Print. We're actually running the PC print driver on this machine, or actually on all our printing machines, because you get the option to add a specific halftone dot size and angle when you get into your photo-based printing, or if you want to print something with value and tone. You can actually do that in the PC print driver. In the Mac driver, it only gives you a couple options, and that gets a bit into the sort of halftone dots and the things you have to consider for printing printing a photo-based image where you want to use halftone dots and to recreate those values. So you choose the color. Here's where you could set the actual halftone dot and the angle. But for something like this, that's kind of more graphic, I'm just going to use Grain Touch, which is a proprietary RISO texture. And Grain Touch that's specific to RISO, right? That's something that RISO sort of invented.
Yeah, it was the original form printing, and then we realized we need to have the line items also.
Right. Yeah. I noticed the Grain Touch is different on the Mac driver than the PC
100%.
printer.
Yeah, the Mac driver does give you different options in the way it reads the images.
Yeah.
Even lines, you don't have as much lines on a Mac that you have on the PC. PC goes up to 200 lines. I think Mac only goes like 106.
Yeah. Well, with Mac, with the halftone dots, you only get the 3 options. You
Yeah.
can't change the angles. So,
Yeah.
Are they going to come up with an updated Mac driver?
Mac, everything is Mac.
Yeah. Okay, so I have it set up. I'm going to go ahead and send it. So I'm going to send that first layer. Then I'm going to send what's going to become the pink layer. And again, I've made this. I've made this image a million times. So for myself, I don't. It's in black and white, and that works for me.
And paper.
Yes, and I'm gonna load up some of the paper so that we can actually print on the right paper stock. So this is interesting. This is something that there's a number of items that you sort of don't. If you want to do certain kinds of printing, it took us a while to figure out how do you send a layer just to the second drum, and we sort of figured it out by accident, because before there's an option where it'll just interpret the image as it'll try to recreate it using the colors you have there, and that's fine, but we wanted more control, so it took us a while to figure out how do you send it to just the second drum. I'm not sure if it's some of the stuff we do is really not in the instruction manual. We're sort of going beyond the default, because it's set up for a user that can just walk up to the machine and you can use it in 5 minutes, but but we're sort of, I don't want to say hacking, but it's nice that you can turn off that and get a bit more specific. So,
It was not made for this process. That's why.
Yeah.
So color 2 only. Another nice thing is we can basically just go ahead and send all, because in the future, after I print those first 2 colors, I'm going to print the black and the yellow, but I can just send those and those will be waiting in the print queue. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose the black layer and just send it to, we'll have that waiting for us. We can output it once we're ready to go. So, And then also for the yellow layer, I have a version that's there's a bit of a lighter tone in the middle. So, file print. The other thing we didn't realize was how those two colors printing together, the blending changes based on the order of the colors and
Yep.
you know what color hits the paper first. It's sort of the opposite of what you expect.
Huh.
That's another thing it took me 6 months to find out, because I was like I print a light color and then I have a darker color in the second position. I was always like, why is the black line looking so light? And then one day I switched it by accident, and suddenly the black line is pretty crisp and strong. And it's the sort of the way those inks, the wet inks, interact with each other. So the whatever color kind of hits the paper first tends to be the one that appears to be on top, which is a really weird thing. I can't think of any other printing process where you have wet on wet printing. It's really
Huh.
I'm gonna grab some paper.
How quickly does it dry?
Well,
It's got a lot.
Depends how much ink you put on it.
It depends on the ink. It also depends on the color.
Yeah.
You know, a
Yeah,
color like
sure.
it's true. And it goes to all the things. Red takes longer to dry. It's just the pigments that you use to make red.
Yeah.
Some people will print one color, let it sit 24 hours. But then other people want the colors to mix, so they want to run it instantly. So it really depends on what application not the application, but how you're using it yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to print a color and then have it full dry, nothing's going to overlap it. People print it, put it on a screen rack or something, let it sit overnight and come back. Or just leave it in the bin. They'll come back the next morning and do it. A lot of schools, because they're being run by like School of Visual Arts, Chicago Art Institute. If it's run by a technician, they'll run. Their setup is print it one color a day, and that's just want to make sure that they're getting what they're saying.
Yeah, it ends up being. I mean, we're kind of like no holds barred. We're all about experimentation. The word lab is very much part of what we encourage people to do. We want people to be able to. When I first got my hands on a RISO, I didn't know anything about it, and there were not a lot of resources out there. So I was just figuring stuff out on my own. And the materials, the consumables, once I bought a secondhand machine, and it was cheap enough that I could sort of make mistakes and experiment, and it wasn't, I wasn't sort of worrying about every copy and master, and that's kind of how we run the space. We have a flat rate system, so students pay a flat rate lab fee, and it's like the gym membership model, where some of them use it more often than others, and no one has to compromise their design because they weren't able to get to the result that they want, so they can use a couple extra masters. But yeah, same thing with the printing. Like, we don't really, we try to guide people. The point of the classes is so that they won't do things that will really destroy the machines, and we can have that flat rate model, and they're not using tons of materials to get the result they want, because they get to make their mistakes in class in front of everyone else. We all learn together, and then it's like a controlled environment, and then outside of class during open lab access, they know what to do because they saw someone do this, they saw, so that's why we have this really rigorous. That's another thing I think that's different about our space, because other schools, like when I used to teach at Parsons, I brought my students from the silkscreen from the printmaking department up to the computer lab where they had a RISO. I was talking up the machine. I was like, I'm running this space at SVA. I showed them examples. I was like, it's just what you're doing here in the print shop, but it's all in a machine. And I was doing a demo and it jammed on the second drum. And the technician came and was like fixing it, and I was then it was this whole thing, and they only give the students a 30-minute demo, and then the students, it's an art school, so they want to experiment and push the limits, and they just the machine just breaks down because they don't have that rigorous approach. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. We really try to train people to a high level, but then do crazy stuff, but knowing what not to do. So that's the idea. So here I have all the 4 layers. It's the same file, and I'm just going to output that first layer. It's going to print on test paper. So we do a lot of test prints to line things up.
So how are you wired right now? Is it wirelessly?
Well,
Usually
Ethernet can't work there.
Ethernet cable.
We're network.
Okay.
We don't have a wireless system built into our because the reason why it's a very simple machine. We don't have a big computer and then run all that stuff.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so it's Ethernet connected to the
school
SVA's
network. Yeah.
Okay.
And this one sometimes just as a backup we'll have a direct printer cable. So in this case for this machine, you know, we're printing it with that way. Usually we have this on a, you know, we have the IP address for the machine, and it's, you know, it's plugged into the school's Ethernet, and so our computers are Wi-Fi, and we're sending it out to, you know, to that IP, and then it's basically coming through the school network and getting into this machine, and we just output it. But we have the printer cable as a backup. So,
Okay.
And there are schools that they just don't like adding things to their networks.
yeah.
You
Sure.
know, so,
Yeah.
like I said, it's direct connect, USB, right beside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same image coming out.
Sure.
It's just different.
Sure.
Yeah. You could also, yeah, you could just plug this into your laptop. There's a USB too.
Can I pick up the print? Or?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh.
So that's the two colors together.
Just want to see how.
So it's pretty easy when it first comes out.
Good work, brother.
So those are the